The city lights of Neo-Terra glowed under the endless night sky. High above the crowded streets stood a tall glass tower, home to one of the richest men on Earth, Draven Holt. People called him a genius, a man who turned dust into gold. He built machines that healed bones, created drones that fought wars, and sold life itself to the highest bidder. But tonight all his power meant nothing. Inside his private chamber, Draven sat beside a small bed. On it lay his daughter, Lyra, a fragile girl with pale skin and tired eyes. She was only 9, but she had seen more pain than most soldiers. Each breath she took was slow and painful, like her lungs were made of glass. Every doctor he hired, every scientist he paid, all said the same thing. "We're sorry, sir. There's no cure." Draven didn't believe in the word impossible. He had conquered markets, destroyed competitors, and bought entire planets, but now the one thing he couldn't buy was time. He sat there holding Lyra's tiny hand. Feeling her pulse fade a little more each night, he whispered, "Hold on, my little star. I'll find a way." The medical machines around her hummed softly, lights blinking red. He stared at the screens, showing her heartbeat, weak, slowing, dying. He slammed his hand against the glass, shouting, "There must be something," but his voice echoed in an empty room. Even his most loyal scientists had stopped offering hope. They had left quietly, afraid to watch the great Draven Holt fall apart outside. The storm of neon rain fell against the tower windows. He looked out into the darkness and felt a strange silence inside him. Money, fame, power, all useless now. He had traded love for success, and now fate demanded payment every night. He would watch old hollows of Lyra laughing before the sickness took her smile away. It tore him apart to see her like this. Then one night, while searching through secret communication channels, he found a message marked as unknown origin. It was encrypted, but he broke the code within seconds. The message was short, just a few words. "I can help your daughter, but the cure is forbidden. Come alone to the mining colony on Rhea 9. Draven stared at the message for a long time, his heart racing. He had heard of Rhea 9, a forgotten world at the edge of the galaxy. No one lived there except miners and scavengers. Who could be sending him this? His advisors told him to ignore it. They said it was a trap, a scam, or maybe a cruel joke. But something deep inside him whispered that it was real. Maybe it was the father in him, maybe it was desperation. But for the first time in years, he felt a small spark of hope. He packed his ship himself, carrying his daughter's medical pod. He left behind his empire, his guards, his fame, everything. All that mattered was the small heartbeat that still echoed in that fragile body. The journey to Rhea 9 took days through dark space. His ship flew past dying stars and silent moons. Draven didn't sleep, his eyes fixed on the pod where Lyra lay frozen in stasis. He whispered, "You'll be fine, my little star, I promise." But inside, fear burned. What if this was all for nothing? When he finally landed, the planet looked like a graveyard of machines. Broken towers, rusted metal, and cold wind. He followed the signal into an old mining station. There, in the middle of the ruin, he saw a small figure waiting, not a man, not a human. It was a child, thin, blue-skinned, with glowing white eyes. The being looked no older than 10, yet when it spoke, the voice carried wisdom far beyond its age. "You came," the alien said softly. "I can help your daughter." Draven froze, his hand reaching for his weapon. "Who are you?" he demanded. The alien tilted its head. "My name is Kale, and I know how to save her." Draven's mind raced. How could this small creature claim to do what no human doctor could? And why did his voice sound so calm, so certain? Kale stepped forward, the light from his skin reflecting in Draven's cold eyes. "There is a cure," he said, "but the law forbids it." Draven narrowed his gaze. "What kind of cure?" Kale looked at the stasis pod, his glowing hands hovering over it. An artificial lung, made from the essence of 2 worlds, human and mine. Draven felt his heart stop. He knew the galactic law. Anyone who dared mix alien and human biology faced death. But Kale didn't look afraid. He said softly, "If we do nothing, she will die." Draven stared at the alien child, torn between fear and hope. The galaxy called him a man of logic, but in that moment, he felt something stronger than reason, love. He looked at Kale and said the words that would change everything. "Then we break the law." The storm outside grew louder, lightning flashing over the broken metal city. Kale nodded once, his glowing eyes calm and sad. And as they carried Lyra's pod deeper into the shadows of the mining lab, the fate of a father, a child, and an alien orphan became forever tied together. And somewhere in the dark, the galaxy began to whisper a new legend. The old mining lab was silent except for the soft hum of broken machines. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars, and the glow from Kale's hands painted the walls in pale blue light. Draven followed the alien child through the narrow halls, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. He couldn't understand why this place felt so heavy, as if it carried memories that refused to die. Kale stopped beside a large metal door covered in alien symbols. He placed his small hand on the panel, and it opened with a low hiss. Inside was a lab unlike anything Draven had seen. Alien technology mixed with old human tools, wires, glass tubes, and strange crystal cores that pulsed like living hearts. Draven stared in awe, realizing this was not just a lab. It was a graveyard of lost knowledge. Kale walked to a table and pointed at a small hologram showing the human lung. Then beside it, another image appeared, a glowing blue version, delicate and alive. "This," Kyle said quietly, "is the gift of my people." Draven leaned closer, watching how the alien lung shimmered with tiny moving lights. "It breathes both air and light," Kale explained. "It heals itself, it never dies." Draven felt his throat tighten. "You're saying you can make this for my daughter?" Kale nodded. "I can, but it is forbidden." Draven frowned. "Why forbidden? This could save millions." Kale looked away, his glowing eyes dimming. "Because your people feared us," he said softly. "They called our gifts unnatural." Draven stood still, trying to process the words. Kale continued. "Long ago, my world shared our healing science with humans, but they used it to build weapons. They turned our gifts into tools of war." He touched one of the crystal hearts, and it flickered with sadness. "When we refused to give more, they destroyed our cities, burned our skies, and left only ashes." Draven felt a cold shame crawl up his spine. The silence between them grew heavy, broken only by the soft hum of the machines. Kale finally turned to him, his voice calm but firm. "I don't hate you, Draven Holt, but if we do this, you must understand it breaks galactic law. And the punishment is death." Draven looked down at Lyra's pod. Her face peaceful but pale inside the glass, he whispered, "I've already lost everything that mattered. What is death to a man who has no reason left to live?" Kale studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then let's begin." They worked through the night. Draven provided his human technology, precise nanobots, sterile tools, and medical scanners. Kale brought alien science, living crystals, biolight, and strange energy threads that moved like liquid fire. Together, they created something neither species could make alone. As the organ began to take shape, Draven felt a strange warmth fill the room. It was as if hope itself was alive again. Kale's hands glowed brighter with each step, the air humming with energy. But as the fusion neared completion, the lights flickered. The lab's sensors beeped in warning. Red symbols flashing across the screens. Kale looked up in alarm. No. Someone is tracking the power signal. Draven's heart jumped. "Who?" "The Galactic Inspectors," Kale said, his voice trembling. "They monitor forbidden energy use." "They'll come here," Draven cursed under his breath. He grabbed his communicator and jammed the frequencies. Trying to hide the energy burst, Kale's small hands kept working, sweat running down his forehead, his glowing skin dimming from exhaustion. Draven wanted to tell him to stop, but Lyra's heart rate was dropping inside the pod. "Finish it," Draven shouted. "Don't stop now." Kale gritted his teeth, the blue light from his hands flaring brighter. Finally, with one last spark, the artificial lung formed, a shimmering organ that pulsed softly with both human and alien energy. Kale fell to his knees, gasping, his glow fading to a pale shimmer. Draven caught him before he collapsed. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it," Kale smiled weakly. "It's not over yet. The lung must bond with her. It will need both our energy." Draven didn't understand, but Kale reached out his hand. "Trust me." For the first time in his life, Draven obeyed someone else. He placed his hand over Kyle's, and the light spread between them, warm and alive together. They began the fusion. The pod opened and soft mist surrounded Lyra's fragile body. Kale pressed the glowing lung into her chest and the light sank beneath her skin. Draven felt a pull, his energy drawn through Kale's touch, flowing into his daughter. It was like giving a piece of his soul away. The machine screamed warnings. Her heartbeat raced, then slowed, then stopped. Draven froze. No, don't you die on me. Kale's body shook, his glow flickering like a dying flame. He whispered, "Wait, it's choosing." Seconds passed like hours. Then Lyra's chest rose, a breath, slow and deep. The lights on the monitor turned green. She was breathing, alive. Draven dropped to his knees, tears in his eyes, unable to speak. Kale smiled faintly. "It worked," he whispered. "She will live." And then he fainted, his small body collapsing on the cold floor. Draven caught him, holding the alien child in his arms. He whispered, "You saved her. You saved my world." But as the hum of the machines calmed, the alarm from the outer sensors began to scream. On the monitor, red lights flashed, galactic ships approaching. Draven looked at the unconscious Kale, then at his daughter breathing for the first time in months. His heart pounded with fear and determination. The law was coming for them, and there was no turning back. Outside, thunder rolled across the planet, and in the shadows of the old mining colony, a father, a daughter, and an alien orphan stood at the edge of destiny. Their story had just begun. The engines of Draven's ship roared as it lifted off from the ruins of Rhea 9. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the storm followed them like a shadow. In the cargo bay, Kale lay unconscious, his faint blue glow fading with each breath. Beside him, Lyra slept peacefully inside her medical pod, breathing for the first time without pain. Draven looked at both of them, and for the first time in years, he felt something like hope, but hope was dangerous now. The galactic inspectors were hunting him, tracking the illegal energy signal that came from the mining colony. If they caught him, he would lose everything, his daughter, his freedom, and maybe even his life. He tightened his hands on the ship's controls, whispering, "They'll have to kill me first." The ship entered stealth mode, disappearing into deep space. Draven flew for hours until he reached a hidden station orbiting an abandoned moon. This was one of his old research outposts, no longer listed in any government record. A perfect place for a secret. He carried Kale to the medical room, laying him beside Lyra's pod. Kale's breathing was weak and his glow almost gone. Draven didn't understand what was happening. He activated a scanner. But the machine couldn't read Kale's biology. It flashed only one message. Unknown life form. Energy-based organism detected. Draven frowned, whispering, "You're not just alien. You're something far greater." Hours passed before Kale opened his eyes. The faint light returned to his skin, and he smiled weakly when he saw Lyra still breathing. "She's stable," Draven said quietly. "You saved her." Kyle nodded, his voice tired but gentle. Her body accepted the gift. "She will live." Draven stared at him, unsure how to thank him. Instead, he said, "Rest, you've done enough," but Kale shook his head. "No, there's more to do." He looked around the lab, noticing the human machines and sterile lights. "This place, it's cold," he said softly. "Your science has no soul." Draven raised an eyebrow. "It keeps people alive," Kyle replied, "but it never teaches them why they should live." Those words hit Draven harder than he expected. Days turned into weeks as they worked together. Kale taught Draven about living technology, how energy and emotion could shape matter. He showed him that healing was not just about fixing bodies, but about balance, about harmony between life and machine. Draven taught Kale about human precision, logic, and data. Together, they created something new, a fusion of two minds, two worlds, in secret. They built prototypes that could change medicine forever, but danger was never far. Every few hours, the security AI warned of nearby patrols scanning for illegal energy signals. Draven had to cloak the lab completely, turning off power for long periods in the darkness. Only Kale's soft blue light kept them company. Lyra would sometimes wake during those dark hours, whispering, "Papa, who's that glowing boy?" Draven would smile faintly. "He's a friend. Lyra, he's the reason you're still here." One night, while Draven was checking the scanners, Kyle quietly approached him. "They're coming closer," Kyle said, pointing at the red dots moving across the screen. Draven frowned. "We've hidden our signals." "How did they find us?" Kale looked worried. "The bond between me and your daughter, it's alive. It sends out waves of energy. If the inspectors detect it, they'll know we're here." Draven clenched his fists. "Then we'll move again." Kale shook his head. We can't. If we move her, her lungs may fail. Draven felt trapped. He looked at his sleeping daughter and then at the alien child who risked everything to save her. Then what do we do? He asked. Kale hesitated, then said softly, We hide the bond, but it will hurt. Draven didn't like the sound of that. Hurt who? Kale looked down. Me, before Draven could stop him. Kale sat beside Lyra's pod and placed his glowing hands over her chest. The light spread across the room, turning blue to white. Kale's face twisted in pain as he absorbed the excess energy. Sealing the connection that linked them, Draven shouted, Stop! You'll destroy yourself! But Kale didn't stop, his voice trembling. She deserves to live. Not to be hunted. The light exploded, shaking the room. When it faded, Kyle lay motionless. His glow almost gone again. Draven ran to him, lifting the small body in his arms. Kale's voice was barely a whisper. It's done. They can't track us now. Draven held him tightly. Why would you do that? Kale smiled faintly. Because that's what family does. Those words made Draven's heart ache in a way he had forgotten. The next day, Draven buried himself in work, refusing to think about the danger. He began recording everything they discovered. The fusion techniques, the living materials, the alien DNA patterns. He realized what they had created could heal not just his daughter, but millions across the galaxy. But if it was ever found, it would be destroyed by the Galactic Council. He made a copy of the data, hiding it deep inside his company's network under a false name. He called it Project Eden. As time passed, Lyra grew stronger, her cheeks returning to color, her laughter filling the silent lab. Draven found himself smiling more often, something he hadn't done in years. But Kale grew weaker, his glow fading each day. Draven noticed it and asked, What's happening to you? Kale looked up and whispered, The gift was meant to be shared, not hidden. When it's hidden, it drains life from the giver. Draven's chest tightened. Then we'll find a way to restore you. Kale smiled softly. Maybe one day. Then one night the alarms blared louder than ever before. Draven rushed to the monitor. Hundreds of galactic ships had entered the system. He heard the AI's cold voice say, Unauthorized life signature detected. Law enforcement inbound. Draven turned to Kale, who stood weak but calm. It's time, Kyle said, his voice steady. They've found us. Draven's heart raced as he grabbed Lyra's pod. I won't let them take you. Kyle looked at him with quiet strength. Then we must run again, outside the hidden base. The stars began to burn with the lights of warships, and in that moment, Draven realized their secret experiment had become more than a cure. It had become a revolution. The future of two worlds was about to change. The night sky over the dead moon shimmered with lights that didn't belong there. From orbit, hundreds of galactic ships formed a circle, their engines burning like blue fire. Draven stood at the edge of the viewing deck, watching the stars vanish behind the enemy's blockade. The calm silence of space was gone, replaced by the low hum of approaching war. In the lab below, Kale stood beside Lyra's pod, his faint glow trembling with fear and exhaustion. He could feel the inspector's scanner sweeping through the station, searching for forbidden energy. He whispered softly, They've come for us. Draven clenched his fists, his reflection cold and sharp in the glass. I won't let them take her, he said. Or you. He rushed to the control panel, typing commands faster than he could think. The station's defense systems hummed awake, old cannons, stealth shields, and false energy signals. But against the galactic fleet, they were like toys against a storm. Kale watched him, his voice calm but heavy. You can't fight them. Draven. Draven turned sharply. Then what do you suggest? Surrender? Kale looked at him with sad eyes. Sometimes, surviving is winning. Outside, the first wave of inspectors landed. Armored soldiers with black visors and shining weapons. Their leader, a tall woman in silver armor, spoke through a communicator, her voice cold and precise. This is Commander Voss of the Galactic Law Enforcement, she said. Surrender immediately, Draven Holt. You are charged with biological fusion crimes under Article 7. Draven stared at the speaker, his voice steady but burning with anger. She's my daughter, not a weapon, Voss replied without emotion. The law does not care about your reasons. Inside the lab, Lyra stirred awake for the first time in days. Her soft voice filled the air. Papa, what's happening? Draven turned to her, his expression softening. Just stay inside the pod. My little star, he said, trying to sound calm. but his eyes betrayed his fear. Kale touched the pod's edge gently. His glow flickering. "She'll be safe," he whispered. "If we can keep them distracted." Draven looked at him in disbelief. "Distracted? You're just a child." Kyle smiled faintly. "You humans always forget. Small things can still make big light." The door to the lab exploded open with a blast of energy. Draven pulled Kale behind a machine as the soldiers stormed in. Smoke filled the air, red lights flashing across the ceiling. The inspectors scanned the room with their energy sensors. "Searching for alien life," one soldier shouted. "We found the signal. There's an illegal organism here." Draven stepped out from behind the console, raising his hands. "I'm the one you want," he said. "Leave them alone." Commander Voss walked forward, her eyes cold as steel. "Where is the alien?" she demanded. Draven didn't answer. His jaw tight, Kale watched from the shadows. Trembling but ready then, as one of the soldiers turned toward Lyra's pod. Kale moved, his body glowed bright blue, lighting the entire room. The soldiers raised their weapons. But before they could shoot, Kale lifted his hands, a wave of energy spread out, knocking them back without harm. The machines trembled, glass shattered, and for a brief moment time seemed to stop. Voss looked in shock. "By the stars, it's real." Kyle stood there, small but powerful, his voice echoing. "She is innocent," he said. "She deserves life." Draven shouted, "Stop! They'll kill you." But Kyle ignored him, stepping closer to the inspectors, his eyes glowed brighter. "You call this law? You destroy what you don't understand." The soldiers surrounded him. Their weapons aimed. Voss raised her hand. "Don't shoot, capture it alive." Kale turned his head toward Draven, smiling faintly. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "This is what I was made for." Before Draven could move, Kale placed his glowing hand on the floor. The energy spread again, disabling the soldiers' suits and cutting off their power. The entire station went dark, silent except for Lyra's soft breathing. Draven rushed to Kale's side, grabbing his shoulders. "Enough! You'll kill yourself!" Kale's voice was weak. "I can hold them for a moment. But you have to run." Draven shook his head. "I won't leave you." Kale looked up at him with glowing tears. "Please, Draven." "She needs you more than I do." Draven hesitated, his heart tearing between two choices. He looked at his daughter, sleeping peacefully inside the pod, then at Kale, who was slowly fading like a dying star. He whispered, "I'll come back for you." Kale smiled. "You already did." With shaking hands, Draven activated the emergency escape module. He placed Lyra's pod inside, sealing it tight. Outside, the inspectors were regaining control. Breaking through the frozen systems, Commander Voss shouted, "Stop them! Don't let them escape!" Draven slammed the launch button, and the escape capsule shot out into space. Disappearing into the void, he turned back to Kale, who was lying on the floor, barely glowing. The boy's eyes opened one last time. "She's safe now," Kyle whispered. "That's all that matters." Draven's throat tightened. "You saved her, Kale." "You saved us both," Kale smiled faintly. "Then maybe humans still have light." The soldiers broke through the smoke, their weapons ready. Draven stood tall in front of Kyle, his face calm. Commander Voss stared at the scene, the powerful man kneeling beside a dying alien child. Something in her expression softened just for a second. She lowered her weapon and said quietly, "Take them alive." The room filled with light as they surrounded him, but Draven didn't care anymore. All he could see was Lyra's pod vanishing into the stars, and somewhere deep in his heart he knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of a story that the galaxy would never forget. The escape capsule cut through the black ocean of space, leaving behind the burning ruins of the moon station. Inside the small vessel, Draven sat in silence, his hands trembling as he stared at the stars. Beside him, the medical pod glowed softly. Lyra sleeping peacefully inside, she was safe, alive, breathing with the lungs that Kale had made. But every time Draven closed his eyes, he saw Kale's small, glowing figure standing alone in that collapsing lab. He whispered to himself, "I should have stayed." But deep down, he knew Kale had chosen this path. The boy's sacrifice had bought them freedom, at least for now. Draven gripped the control panel, forcing the capsule to change course. The galactic tracking systems were still searching for them, so he had to vanish completely. After hours of silence, the capsule landed on an old cargo ship floating in deep space. It was one of Draven's forgotten trade vessels, rusted, unregistered, and perfect for hiding. He transferred Lyra's pod into the ship's med bay. watching her small chest rise and fall with every breath. Her new lungs glowed faintly beneath her skin, as if Kale's light still lived inside her. Draven touched the glass and whispered, "He saved you, my little star. Now I'll save him." He activated the ship's computer, searching for any signal from Rhea 9 or the moon base. But the data feed only showed static. The galactic inspectors had erased the entire sector, marking it as contaminated everything, the lab, the ruins, even Kyle were gone. Draven clenched his teeth, anger rising inside him. He had built his empire by obeying power, by trusting the law. Now he saw what the law truly was. Fear disguised as order. Days passed as they drifted through dark space. Draven spent his nights repairing the ship and watching old recordings of Kyle working beside him. In one clip, Kale's voice echoed softly, "Healing is not about power, Draven. It's about kindness." He paused the video, staring at the glowing child's image. Those words felt heavier now than any machine or weapon he had ever built. When Lyra finally woke, she looked around the ship, confused. "Papa, where are we?" she asked weakly. Draven knelt beside her pod, smiling gently. "We're safe now." She blinked. "And Kale? The glowing boy?" Draven froze for a moment, then said quietly, "He's far away, but his light is still with us." Lyra nodded, placing her small hand over her chest. "I can feel it." Tears filled Draven's eyes, but he turned away before she could see. Over the next few weeks, they traveled from planet to planet, never staying long. Draven used his wealth and old contacts to buy fake identities. He was no longer Draven Holt, the richest man on Earth. He became a ghost, a nameless traveler with a sick child and a broken ship. But even as they ran, he began to change. He started helping people they met along the way. A miner with a burned hand, a refugee with a wounded child. Using the knowledge Kale had shared, he repaired what he could, healed who he could. For the first time in his life, he was giving instead of taking, and it felt right. One night, while they were docked near a red dwarf star, Lyra found him sitting in the cockpit. Staring into space, she climbed onto his lap and said, "Papa, you look sad." He smiled softly. "Just thinking." "About Kale?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, and about what he taught me." Lyra tilted her head. "He said people have light inside them, right?" Draven chuckled weakly. "Yes, he did." She smiled. "Then maybe we can share his light too." Her words hit him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. From that night on, Draven began collecting his notes and recordings from Project Eden. But this time it wasn't for profit. He rewrote the data, removing any trace of weaponization, focusing only on healing. He created a hidden medical network under the code name Project Starborn. Through it, he sent Kale's fusion technology to secret clinics across the galaxy. Quietly, without recognition, he began saving lives again. Every life saved felt like one more spark of Kale's light reborn. But even hope cannot stay hidden forever. One morning, while checking the ship's sensors, Draven noticed something strange. A signal repeating across nearby systems. It was faint, almost impossible to hear, but it carried a familiar pattern. He ran the code through his system and froze when he saw the translation. "I am alive," it said. The signal came from deep within a restricted galactic zone. Draven's heart raced. "Kyle!" Lyra ran into the cockpit. "Papa, what is it?" Draven turned to her with a trembling smile. "It's him, Lyra. It's Kale. He's alive." Lyra's eyes widened. "Then we have to find him." Draven hesitated, staring at the coordinates. It was dangerous. Heavily patrolled space, crawling with galactic ships. If he went there, they might never come back. But then he looked at his daughter, at the spark of hope in her eyes. And he remembered Kale's words. "Sometimes surviving is winning." He whispered, "No, Kale. This time living is fighting." He programmed the ship's course toward the restricted zone. Engines roared as the stars began to blur around them. Lyra held his hand tightly. "We'll find him, right?" Draven smiled faintly. "We'll find him, my little star." Outside the window, streaks of light stretched across the darkness. The father, the child, and the ghost of a glowing boy now shared the same destiny. Somewhere ahead, beyond the walls of fear and law, a new beginning waited. And as the old ship vanished into hyperspace, Draven whispered one final promise to the stars. "For every world that turned away from kindness, we will bring it back. And far away, In the silence between stars, a faint blue light answered, pulsing softly, as if Kale was listening. The stars outside the ship drifted like cold. Silent watchers, Draven sat in the cockpit, eyes fixed on the glowing signal that pulsed across the radar screen. It was faint but steady, repeating the same pattern over and over. I am alive. He had replayed it 100 times, and every time it made his heart beat faster. It was Kale's signal, no doubt. His unique energy pattern was something Draven would never forget. Lyra sat beside him, her small hands holding a holographic map. Papa, the signal is coming from Sector 9, near the Galactic Council's main station, she said softly. Draven frowned. That's the heart of their law, the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Lyra looked up at him with innocent determination. You said Kale saved me, now it's our turn to save him. Her words were simple, but they cut through the silence like light through darkness. Draven sighed, staring out at the endless stars. You sound just like him. For days they traveled through forgotten routes and broken wormholes. Draven used his old knowledge of the galactic systems to hide from patrols. Every time they passed near a council beacon, he could feel the danger crawling closer. But his mind was set. He would find Kale, no matter the cost. The father who once cared only about money was now chasing a ghost across the stars. And that ghost had taught him what humanity truly meant. At last they reached the edge of Sector 9. The air was thick with signal interference, and massive space stations floated in the distance like sleeping giants. Draven adjusted the ship's sensors, searching for the source of Kale's pulse. There, he said quietly. Inside that abandoned orbital ring. The structure looked ancient, twisted metal, broken glass, and drifting debris. As they approached, the signal grew stronger, until the cockpit filled with soft blue light. Lyra gasped. It's him. Draven's voice trembled. Yes, he's here. They landed the ship inside one of the broken hangars, metal grinding under the weight of the landing gear. When the doors opened, cold air rushed in. Carrying the faint hum of energy, Draven stepped out carefully, holding his blaster just in case. The hall was dark, but at the end of it a soft blue glow flickered. He followed the light and entered a chamber filled with old alien technology. And there, standing in the center of it, was Kale. The same small figure, the same calm eyes, though weaker, thinner, and surrounded by strange cables that fed into his body. Kyle, Draven whispered. The boy turned slowly, his voice soft as wind. I knew you'd come. Draven ran to him, pulling the cables out. What have they done to you? Kale smiled faintly. They captured me after the explosion. The council wanted to study me. They call me a living weapon now. Draven felt rage rising inside him. You're not a weapon, you're a child. Kale shook his head. To them, anything different must be controlled. Lyra ran in behind her father, tears filling her eyes. Kale. Kale's face softened when he saw her. Lyra. You're well, she nodded proudly. Because of you. Kyle reached out, touching the glass of her pod gently. Then it was worth it. Before they could speak more, the entire room flashed red. A mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. Unauthorized life forms detected, lockdown initiated. Draven cursed. They know we're here. The walls began to close in. Armored drones descending from the ceiling. Kale's glow brightened. Go. Take her and run. Draven grabbed his arm. No. I'm not leaving you again. Kale's eyes glowed with sadness. If I stay connected to their system, I can stop the lockdown. But I'll burn out. Draven froze, his heart pounding. You'll die. Kale nodded softly. Maybe, but you'll live. And so will she. Lyra grabbed Draven's sleeve, crying, Papa, no. We can't leave him. Draven looked between the two children. One born of his blood, one born of his guilt, and he couldn't breathe. For years, his choices had been about power and control. Now the universe asked for something harder, mercy, sacrifice, love. His hand shook as he whispered, Kale, there has to be another way. Kale smiled weakly. There is, but it's not for me. He reached up, placing a small glowing hand on Draven's chest. Your heart knows the answer, he said. Don't let fear choose for you. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hall. Soldiers coming closer. Draven's mind raced, every second slipping away. Then he looked at Lyra, at Kale, and finally understood. He turned to Kale, his voice steady but breaking. If you stay, you die. If I stay, They'll take me, but if we both stay, we fight, Kale blinked, confused. What are you saying? Draven took one of the energy cables and connected it to his own arm. If you burn out, then I burn with you. Kale's eyes widened. You'll die. Draven smiled. I died the day I let fear rule me. Together, they reached into the heart of the system. Light bursting from their hands, energy flowed through the station, breaking the control network and shutting down the drones. The machines exploded one by one, sparks flying like shooting stars. The station trembled as alarms screamed across the metal halls. Lyra screamed, Papa! Draven looked back at her, his face glowing from the energy running through him. Run, my little star, and never stop shining, he whispered. Kale turned to her too. Live for both of us. Then the light consumed everything. When the explosion faded, the station drifted silently among the stars. Lyra's escape pod floated away, her small face pressed against the glass as she watched the ring of fire collapse. Tears fell down her cheeks, but she wasn't afraid inside her chest. Her glowing lungs pulsed softly and she whispered, They kept their promise. Far below, the wreck of the station burned like a dying star. But from the flames, two lights rose, one blue, one white. They merged together, forming a soft, endless glow that drifted across the sky. And the galaxy would one day call it the Star of Mercy, a symbol that even in the darkest corners of space, love could still defy the law. The years passed, and the war between law and life faded into the dust of memory. But legends, unlike bodies, never die. In every corner of the galaxy, people whispered about the man who broke the law to save his child, and the alien orphan who gave his soul for her heart to keep beating. They called it the story of the Starborn, and no one could erase it, not even the Galactic Council. Far from the crowded worlds of the rich and powerful, a small colony thrived on a green moon bathed in soft blue light. It was quiet, peaceful, filled with children playing and families laughing. And among them walked a young woman with bright eyes and lungs that glowed faintly beneath her skin. Her name was Lyra Holt, the daughter who once lay dying beneath the cold machines of a broken world. Now she was a healer, known to all as the Girl of Light. Every morning, she stood beneath the twin suns, helping the sick who came from far worlds. Her hands were steady, her voice calm, her smile warm. People said her touch could mend pain even before medicine began. But Lyra never claimed power for herself. She always said the same words to everyone she helped. It wasn't me who saved you. It was kindness. At night when the colony slept, she would climb to the hill that overlooked the valley. There, two stars shone brighter than all the others. One white, one blue. The people called them the twin lights. But Lyra knew what they truly were. She would look up and whisper, "Good night, Papa." "Good night, Kale." Her memories of that final day were blurred by light and tears. But she remembered the warmth of Kale's glow, and her father's last smile. She remembered how they stood side by side, refusing to bow to fear. That memory lived inside her, guiding her every choice. Years later, when the Galactic Council sent new inspectors to the colony, they didn't come with weapons this time. They came seeking help. A strange disease had begun to spread through the outer worlds, one that even their best doctors couldn't stop. The leader of the team, an older woman with silver armor and tired eyes, stepped forward. It was Commander Voss, the same woman who once led the attack on Draven's lab. Time had softened her face, but not her guilt. Lyra welcomed her with kindness, offering food and shelter. Voss hesitated. "You know who I am, don't you?" Lyra smiled. "Yes, and I also know who you can be." Those words broke something inside the old soldier. For years she had carried the weight of her action, the destruction, the deaths, the law she served without question. Now, standing before the daughter of the man she once hunted, she saw what mercy truly looked like. Lyra examined the infected samples brought by the team. When she looked through the microscope, her heart froze. The disease was biological energy corruption, the same type that once destroyed Kale's people. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Then this is where his gift will shine again." Using her father's old notes and Kale's designs, she worked day and night. The blue glow from her lungs merged with the energy crystals her father once built, and soon she created a serum, not a cure born of greed, but of love. When the first patient healed, the news spread faster than light. People began to travel from distant systems, bringing hope where once there was only fear. They didn't call it medicine, they called it Kale's light. Even the council had to accept it, for no law could stop kindness, Commander Voss stayed behind, helping Lyra build what she called the Haven of Stars, a network of hospitals and sanctuaries across forgotten worlds. There were no prices, no hierarchies, only healing. Each one carried the symbol of two intertwined stars, one white, one blue, and beneath it were carved the words, "Life is not to be owned, but to be shared." As the years turned into decades, Lyra grew older, her hair turning silver under the alien suns, but her eyes still carried the same soft light. One evening, as she sat by the window of her clinic, she felt a gentle warmth around her, a light so soft it felt like a whisper. She looked up and saw the two stars glowing brighter than ever, and for a moment she heard a voice. Two voices, one deep and human, one soft and alien. "We're proud of you," they said. Tears filled her eyes and she smiled. "I kept my promise." The next morning, the colony awoke to find the sky glowing blue and white. A rare phenomenon spread across the heavens. Two comets dancing together. The children pointed and laughed, shouting, "The Starborn are flying again." The adults bowed their heads, knowing it was true. Somewhere beyond the limits of flesh and time, Draven Holt and Kale walked side by side. No longer human and alien, but equals. Guardians of light. Protectors of life. And so the legend grew, passed from one generation to another. Fathers told their children about the rich man who found his soul. And children dreamed of the glowing boy who healed the stars. Even the council, long after its old leaders had turned to dust, rewrote its laws. The forbidden rule of no fusion of species was replaced with a new decree. All life, no matter its origin, has the right to exist together. Centuries later, long after names faded and empires crumbled, a small statue stood at the center of the Galactic Union's capital. It showed a man kneeling beside an alien child, holding a small glowing heart between them. Below the statue were 5 simple words glowing softly in blue and white light. "In kindness we become one," and somewhere, beyond the reach of any law, the two lights still shone across the stars, forever reminding the galaxy of what a father, a child, and an alien orphan once proved. That humanity isn't about the world we're born on. It's about the love we choose to share. And as long as that love exists, the universe will never truly be dark.